Hello. That was weird. Hello. So today I'm going to do a video on why I love epistolary novels so much and some of my favourite examples of letters which I love reading and I read all the time, even though they are quite niche. Just to clarify, epistolary means anything that's written in the form of letters. So an epistolary novel is a novel that's written in the form of letters. And examples of this could be On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, which is one of my favourite novels ever, and I actually did it as my coursework and got an A-star. And most of the epistolary novels that I read aren't really novels, they're just non-fiction letters written between writers that are put together. For example, Letters to Melina, which is one of my favourite books ever, and these were the real life letters between Franz Kafka and Melina Jasenka, and I just think they're so beautiful. There's so many letters of Kafka's. There's his diaries, there's his letter to his father, there's his letters to Felice Bauer. Any letter of his is epistolary, and that's why I love it. And some more are the diaries of Sylvia Plath. I don't really know if you could count them as letters because they are basically diaries. They're written to herself, but maybe, I guess. I mean, a diary is a letter to yourself, so I guess it is a letter. The letters between Vincent and Theo van Gogh, those are absolutely beautiful. I started reading a few of them and I just loved them. I just find it so unfair that Vincent was such a beautiful artist and also a beautiful writer. Like, why did he have everything? But I guess he had a lot of mental health issues, so I'll give that to him. And another one is the letters between Vita Sackville-West and Virginia Woolf. Those are absolutely beautiful as well. I read a few of them and I love them. I love Virginia Woolf's writing, and one of her letters is one of my favourites, which I'm going to be reading out today. So to simplify it, the reason why I love epistolary novels so much is because I love letters. I just think letters are so beautiful and they're just so raw and so intimate and so characteristic of human nature. You might think I'm saying that because I find so much beauty in everything, just the little things, but it's true. I just love letters so much, and every day I mourn why texts were invented because I love letters. I mean, I know that back then people didn't think of letters as this romantic thing. I mean, people sent letters when they wanted to tell someone where they were and just these short stuff because it was the only way of sending stuff. They didn't have text. But just thinking about it, even the letters in novels, like most novels that are written in these modern times that are full of letters and these beautiful letters, I mean, they didn't need to send letters, they could send text, but they're just so beautiful. And there's something special about 19th century letters, especially by writers. I don't know if there was something in the air at that time, but even if you weren't a writer, your letter was just extraordinary. It was beautiful. Just the way that people wrote back then was so eloquent, and that's why I love those type of letters, especially the ones, you know, again written by writers like Kafka and Sylvia and Vincent van Gogh and all these beautiful people. Everything they wrote was just so beautiful, and you knew it was true as well. So I wanted to share 3 of my favourite letters. 2 of them are fiction and 1 of them is non-fiction, and just when I was looking at them and categorised them, I realised how morbid they actually are. 2 of them are basically suicide letters, and 1 of them is not a suicide letter, but it is kind of the character's last letter before he dies. So it kind of is like a death letter, so very morbid but very beautiful. But that's what literature is. So the first one I'm going to read out is Virginia Woolf's suicide letter. Virginia Woolf was such a beautiful woman, and even in her suicide letter she wrote so beautifully. Like, it almost makes me feel bad to read it out, saying that it's such a beautiful and such an amazing letter. Even though she was going through such a horrible time, she was so vulnerable, and it kind of makes me sad to perpetuate her sadness, but it is honestly such a beautiful letter and I just have to read it because it is so haunting. Dearest, I feel certain I am going mad again. I feel we can't go through another of those terrible times, and I shan't recover this time. I begin to hear voices and I can't concentrate, so I am doing what seems the best thing to do. You have given me the greatest possible happiness. You have been in every way all that anyone could be. I don't think 2 people could have been happier till this terrible disease came. I can't fight any longer. I know that I am spoiling your life and that without me you could work. And you will, I know. You see, I can't even write this properly. I can't read. What I want to say is I owe all the happiness of my life to you. You have been entirely patient with me and incredibly good. I want to say that. Everybody knows it. If anybody could have saved me, it would have been you. Everything has gone from me, but the certainty of your goodness. I can't go on spoiling your life any longer. I don't think two people could have been happier than we have been. Something about her suicide letter also being one of the greatest love declarations I've ever heard is just so haunting, just so beautiful. So the next letter that I love very, very dearly is Frances's letter to Richard in The Secret History. And I talk about this book all the time with my friends and to myself. It's just a really beautiful book. And in the book there's a character, Francis, who ends up trying to commit suicide near the end of the book. And he gives a letter to Richard telling him about how he just has all these thoughts about life, to be honest. It's basically a suicide letter that he gives to him, but he doesn't end up actually dying. He actually ends up surviving and is in a hospital with cuts to his wrist. But I just think the letter is really beautiful, so I'm going to read it out loud. Dear Richard, I wish I could say that this is a difficult letter for me to write, but in fact it is not. My life has been for many years in a process of disillusion, and it seems to me that now, finally, it's time for me to do the honourable thing. So this is the last chance I will have to speak to you, in this world at least. What I want to say to you is this: work hard, be happy with Sophie. He did not know about our breakup. Forgive me for all the things I did, but mostly for the ones that I did not. That is one of my favourite quotes ever. I literally have that as my bio on my Wattpad account. There's also a bit of French which I can't read out loud, so I'm going to try and pronounce it, but it's going to be pretty bad. Mais vrai je trop plais, les aubes so navrantes. I'm so sorry. What a sad and beautiful line that is. I'd always hoped that someday I'd have the chance to use it, and maybe the dawns will be less harrowing in that country for which I shortly depart. Then again, the Athenians think death to be merely sleep. Soon I will know for myself. I wonder if I will see Henry on the other side. If I do, I am looking forward to asking him why the hell he didn't just shoot us all and get it over with. Don't feel too bad about any of this. Really. Cheerily, Francis. I love that letter because it's not only sad, but it's also poetic and funny and so full of regret and discovery at the same time. It's pretty beautiful, to be honest, which is why it's one of my favourites. I don't know if I ever got a suicide letter like that, I'd be worried about the person committing suicide when I just read a beautiful letter, which is really bad to say. I'd just be staring at the letter like, you know, what an awesome writer. I kind of forgot the fact that this is a suicide letter, but okay. One of my favourite parts of that letter is when he says that the Athenians merely think death is sleep, and I actually learned about that in classics. In one of the lessons we were doing a lesson about the golden age in the time of the Romans with Augustus, and I know that the Romans and the Athenians are different, but the Romans kind of stole everything from the Athenians, but there was just this idea that they believed in the golden age and the idea that when people died they would just go into a deep sleep, and it was beautiful. And I actually saved that piece of writing, that document, because it reminded me so much of this letter. The last letter that I want to read is definitely sad. All of them are sad, but this one ends on a bit of a more positive note, which is good, not as morbid as the rest of them. But this letter is just, I would say, one of my favourites, but I've said that the whole video, so it is just one that I love, and it resonates with me a lot deeper than the rest of them because of the message that it sends. The idea of loving people deeply and not widely, and just, it's just such a beautiful letter of romance, but also a letter of life, and just, you know, it's not just a love letter to Hazel, but a love letter to life and to just, you know, being present, and it's just amazing. And I kind of spoiled what it is by saying Hazel, but it is The Fault in Our Stars, Augustus's final letter to Hazel. It's not really a suicide letter, it's just like a goodbye letter because he knew he was gonna die. So let's read it out. Van Houten, I'm a good person but a shitty writer. You're a shitty person but a good writer. We'd make a good team. I don't want to ask you any favours, but if you have time, and from what I saw, you have plenty, I was wondering if you could write a eulogy for Hazel. I've got notes and everything, but if you could just make it into a coherent whole or whatever, or even just tell me what I should say differently. Here's the thing about Hazel. Almost everyone is obsessed with leaving a mark upon the world, bequeathing a legacy, outlasting death. We all want to be remembered. I do too. That's what bothers me most, is being another unremembered casualty in the ancient and inglorious war against disease. I want to leave a mark. But Van Houten, the marks humans leave are too often scars. You build a hideous minimal or start a coup or try to become a rock star and you think they'll remember me now, but A, they don't remember you, and B, all you leave behind are more scars. Your coup becomes a dictatorship, your minimal becomes a legion. Okay, maybe I'm not such a shitty writer, but I can't put my ideas together, Van Houten. My thoughts are stars I can't fathom into constellations. We are like a bunch of dogs squirting on fire hydrants. We poison the groundwater with our toxic piss, marking everything mine in a ridiculous attempt to survive our death. I can't stop pissing on fire hydrants. I know it's silly and useless, epically useless in my current state, but I am an animal like any other. Hazel is different. She walks slightly, old man. She walks slightly upon the earth. Hazel knows the truth. We're as likely to hurt the universe as we are to help it, and we're not likely to do either. People will say it's sad that she leaves a lesser scar, that few remember her, that she was loved deeply but not widely. But it's not sad, Van Houten. It's triumphant. It's heroic. Isn't that the real heroism? Like the doctors say, first do no harm. The real heroes anyway aren't the people doing things. The real heroes are the people noticing things, paying attention. The guy who invented the smallpox vaccine didn't actually invent anything. He just noticed that people with cowpox didn't get smallpox. After my PET scan lit up, I snuck into the ICU and saw her while she was unconscious. I just walked in behind a nurse with a badge and I got to sit next to her for like 10 minutes before I got caught. I really thought she was going to die before I could tell her that I was going to die too. It was brutal. The incessant mechanised haranguing of intensive care. She had this dark cancer water dripping out of her chest, eyes closed, intubated, but her hands were still her hands, still warm, and the nail painted this almost black dark blue, and I just held her hand and tried to imagine the world without us. And for about 1 second I was a good enough person to hope she died, so she would never know that I was going too. But then I wanted more time so we could fall in love. I got my wish, I suppose. I left my scar. A nurse guy came in and told me I had to leave, that visitors weren't allowed, and I asked if she was doing okay, and the guy said she is still taking on water. A desert blessing, an ocean curse. What else? She is so beautiful. You don't get tired of looking at her. You never worry if she is smarter than you. You know she is. She is funny without ever being mean. I love her. I am so lucky to love her, Van Houten. You don't get to choose if you get hurt in this world, old man, but you do have some say in who hurts you. I like my choices. I hope she likes hers. And then the book ends with Hazel saying, I do, Augustus, I do. As in she likes her choices. And what a beautiful end to a beautiful book. And I just wish that that scene was in the book. There is a scene where she finds the letter that she gives her, but it's not word for word, which makes sense because it is quite long, but it's just so beautiful. So that's all the letters I'm going to be reading today. Of course there's way more letters that I love and way more epistolary novels that I want to read. I just think that letters in themselves are such interesting and such creative pieces of art, even if they weren't intended to be. I just love every single one of them. Except maybe complaint letters. I wish people knew that writing letters, homemade letters, handmade letters and sending them isn't illegal. Other people might think it's weird, but to me that's the way to my heart. I mean, texts are okay, they're functional, but just write me a letter, just confess, just talk about how much you love me, praise me, and then just seal it with a wax slip and you've made it into here.